So, okay. All right. We're going to start off in Luke chapter 7, 41 through 43. But, one of the unique things about this parable is it's probably one of the shorter parables, but yet just as impactful. As I was preparing this morning, I was thinking of Dwight. Dwight is a man of very few words, but yet they're very impactful. This week we were reading in Galatians, and I think it was Galatians 6:13, right, Kevin? Where a little bit of leaven's a whole lot of dough. Five, yeah. And it was just like, that is Dwight, to a T right there. So.
We need to be right now.
What?
What chapter?
You need to be in church. Oh, this is Midville. Luke 7, 41 through 43. Okay. I'm going to open up with a big question for all of you. Get your thinking caps on. Have you ever had someone forgive you for something big in your life?
Yes.
I'll share one. This happened about 4 years ago. I was helping a man with a deal, and we were in the inspection contingencies. And I counted the days. It was supposed to be 10 days to get all the inspections done. I counted the days, had it on the calendar. And anyways, we found out that the well was bad. And I went ahead and I said, okay, so we wrote it up, got it in, got it over to the other agent, and she says, you're off by 1 day. And I went, no, we're not. And I counted the days on the calendar again. She goes, nope, you started on the wrong day. That wasn't the contract. And so I had to call this man back. And I said, look, we're off by 1 day. This is my fault, my mistake. The well is bad. What do you want to do? I said, we could probably get out under some other conditions. And he said, no big deal. He said, we'll go ahead with the contract. I'll pay the money to have the well fixed. And he forgave me for it. And he's since been one of my best clients ever since, because I was honest with him with the mistake. He said, I didn't blame it on somebody else. You took the ownership of it, and we've done several deals since, And that's always impacted me, that someone stuck with me. And, this man, we've probably tried to get 7 deals so far this year, but we haven't got through on one of them. But I don't care. I will keep helping this man and keep. Yesterday I went to 2 different showings and showed him a ranch and everything else and sick and everything. But this man didn't give up on me on our field deal, and I'm not going to give up ever on him. So, does somebody else have anything else to share that someone forgave you about?
When I was working construction in college, I was backfilling foundations on this condominium. It was like very weird shaped, and I got in this one corner, and they had just switched out skid steers, so I was driving a New Holland that had this like kind of extension in the back that I wasn't paying attention to, and I took out an 8-foot picture window on a brand new condo and had to go tell my boss, and he gave me a noogie and said most people wouldn't have come and told me that. They would have just driven away. But so he was thankful, but not real thankful.
As soon as you said backfilling footings, I knew exactly what you were going to say to an extent. Kevin, did you have something?
Yeah, I have one that's kind of like the guy that didn't tell, like Trent was saying. Most people wouldn't go and tell. So my first job I had working for Paul Sutton, I was like 14, and I was exterminating gophers out in the field, and you use a flex pipe and you put it on the exhaust pipe of a truck, put the other end down in the hole and cover it up, And so I was backing the truck out, and I was kind of new to driving, so I was looking this way and I was backing out. I turned and just took out the edge of his shed where the door was, and I was horrified and so scared. I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything, but I still came back to work the next day, and it was all fixed. And I never said anything, and he never said anything. He just fixed it and forgave me, and that really sticks with me. Like, he could have really come after me, but he didn't. He just fixed it and forgave me. So
I know there's some of you that probably don't want to share some of your stories, but how does it feel to be forgiven by somebody else? What was that?
Takes the weight off.
Takes a weight off.
It's really humbling. I think we do it with our kids all the time.
What was that?
I said we do it with our kids all the time, where the person, has to forgive and move on because they do make mistakes because that's how they learn. And, ours is a pyromaniac, so,
He was not the cause of the fire in Midville last night, but yeah. One of the poop piles caught on fire over at Springer's last night, Zeke. Yeah, self-combusted.
I think family conflicts are the hardest.
Aren't they?
I had one with a brother, not Bill, but with a brother, and he didn't talk to me for 2 years. But it really wasn't anything I did. He imagined that I did something, or that we did something. And that's, family is the hardest.
It truly is. And like Heather was just saying about our boys, it's because you see sometimes the same mistakes over and over again. Or there's so much hurt there that even the simplest things that they can imagine, like you just said, become bigger than they really are. And
Did that brother ever realize that it was no fault of yours?
He eventually forgave me. In fact, this happened close to 50 years ago, this problem. And 2 years ago, he finally told me that he loved me.
that's beautiful. And I couldn't have had you said it any better for the segue. Have you ever noticed that people who realize how much they've been forgiven tend to love the hardest? And I think it's true. If I look at everybody in this room, we've all been forgiven. But this room shares so much love. Each and every one of you share love in some different way. And we know that you've all been forgiven for something at one point in your life. All right, to set the scene a little bit, Jesus tells this parable during a tense dinner party. There's judgment in the room, pride in the room, shame in the room, and then Jesus completely flips the situation upside down. Kevin, do you think you can read the whole passage, 41 through 43?
Yeah, sure. A certain moneylender had 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. When they could not pay, he canceled the debt of both. Now which of them will love him more? Simon answered, the one, I suppose, for whom he canceled the larger debt. And he said to him, you have judged rightly.
It's a pretty tense scene. I always go back to The Chosen, and this is one of the better scenes in that whole series. We think about Jesus is eating in this house and with this Pharisee named Simon, and this woman comes in and she enters the house and begins washing Jesus' feet. And she's doing it with tears in her eyes and wiping his feet with her hair. These people were judging her in so many different ways. Simon then judges her internally and questions Jesus about it. What assumptions was Simon making at that point?
Yeah. She's a sinner.
She is a sinner.
Yeah.
But she's not worthy to be around Jesus. So many different things. Here's one for you, if you guys will want to admit it. Have you ever judged somebody? I think we all have, in one way or another. Good or bad. And it's tough. We see things on a daily basis. We have a sinful heart, and we think that we're better than a lot of people because we come to church on Sunday. We read the Bible. And then we look at others and be like, well, get your life together, So here's the biggest question. Why do Christians struggle with giving grace the most? I think in my case, and this happens a lot lately, is the deeper I read the Bible, the deeper I study the Bible, the deeper I go into it, the more frustrated I get with other people. Just like, this is it. This is all you got to do is read this. All you got to do is act like this. And I judge them on that. Like, why is this so hard? You know? And I think that's one of the more difficult things for me, especially with my boys, you know? Pay attention. Just read this real quick. Zeke.
Could you re-ask the question?
Why is it so hard for Christians to give grace to others?
I think one reason it might be that some of us, whenever we try to judge someone on something, we're also like hypocritical about it. Like it's like, I'm failing at this too. Why should I judge them if I'm not any better than them?
Oh, yeah. Paul.
I worked with, when I was working for my brother, running his business there in LeGrand, working with a couple of guys that, you know, they have to go wake them up in the morning to get to work. You know, they've been doing drugs the night before and run around, and I mean here and there, and I was like, what's wrong with you guys? But then when I heard how they were raised, I'm like, wow. No wonder they are acting the way they are. And I had to look at myself, you know, when we grew up, we didn't have a clue what fentanyl and cocaine and all that stuff. Never had an idea. I mean, we were out there in the boondocks. That's where we lived. That's where we were raised. And I'm thankful for that. And I tend to judge others from that point of view. But when I understand what their dads, their parents did, it was just, it's incredible. There's no way that I can judge. And that's what I tend to do now. It's like, wait a minute, you know, I have no idea how they were raised, what they went through, and what bearing that has on them now, the decisions that they make.
You know, Paul, I think you said the best word that we can all try to obtain, and is it to understand somebody else. Not justify it, not condone it, not condemn it, but just understand. You know, this week we had a town hall meeting for Hercules, and we got done with it, and the CEO and owner of Hercules went ahead and he says, help me understand this person. Help me understand where this question came from. You know, because from his eyes, he's looking at things as a good thing, you know. And I had to tell him, I said, you know, this is the only thing they know in life, this one thing. They don't understand how big this world is. They've only done this, their 5th generation to do this, you know. And I think that's the greatest word that we can all do as Christians, is try to understand others before we judge them. And that is tough. Go ahead.
I think sometimes, I heard this years ago, not far back as Moses or anything.
Okay.
Just thought I'd throw that in there. Somebody once said that you got to make judgments, but when you start passing sentence on people is when you get in trouble.
It's very true. Sometimes we give them the sentence before we even judge them. Larry?
So to me there's a difference between judgment and what I call observable actions. So if I look at you and say, hey, you know, you're going to the bar every night getting drunk and in a fight, you shouldn't do that. I'm not judging you.
That was 20 years ago.
I've heard the story.
25.
25, sorry. I'm getting older. I forget how old I am.
But there's a verse that says, don't judge lest you be judged. And I believe the context of the scripture is a person's eternal soul. And this is a joke, maybe it's funny, maybe it's not, but sometimes I envision certain Christian people on the day of judgment going to Jesus and saying, you know, you got all these millions of people to judge. Why don't you let me help you? You know, and which is foolishness, right? And so really, Jesus will be the ultimate judge of everybody. If we see and observe something that a person has say, hey, you know, that's not really a good thing to do. I don't see that as judgment. So.
It's true. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about you and myself and Paul. You know, we're in sales, and so we see a lot of patterns. You know, people that want to look at a house or look at a shed, and it's like, these people aren't going to buy. They're tire kickers or, you know, whatever. And then every once in a while, they'll pull out cash, you know. Right, Paul? You know, and it's like, why was I even judging? I mean, we've seen this pattern 100 times, but at the same time, I shouldn't have judged that, you know. Yeah.
I do think that judgment can go a different direction. And, I mean, I work in school, at the school with children, and to see a child where you know that they came from some really hard circumstances and being able to make themselves better.
Yeah.
And I think you can see it's a judgment to a parent, perhaps, like, you know, why didn't you think of your child more? Like, why didn't you help them more? But then to see in high school, all of a sudden this child like blooms and wants to be better than that circumstance. And I think you pass judgment on that too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Kevin and I even had a good conversation this week about some individuals, you know, that had some past. And I think one of my hardest traits sometimes is that I do see the good in people, even though it may be this small and their mistakes might be this big. You know, I do focus on that a whole lot, you know, and I want to gravitate to that, you know, and so sometimes I do pass judgment on the opposite, like, oh, they did this good thing, you know, and they can be held to that standard, but, you know, sometimes. All right, let's move on. I think we all know the creditor that forgave the debt, that's God, you know, and the people that owed debts, you know, one owed 500 denarii and one owed 50, very unequal, you know, for the most part. And I think at times we look at sin the same way. You know, we look at other people's sins. They stole money, or they beat their wife, or they cheated on their wife, or whatever, and we hold them to a different standard. But yet we're doing the same thing over here in a different sin in a lot of ways. Romans 3:23 says, for we have all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. I mean, there's not one of us in here that hasn't sinned at one time or another. And we justify it to ourselves sometimes. Well, it wasn't as big as so-and-so's. And we can't do that. We just can't do that. Here's an important detail right here. Why do you think Jesus included the detail that neither of these individuals could pay it?
Part of the lesson, like, we can't pay the debt that Jesus paid.
No. We never can. No matter how hard we try. It's always going to be unequal, you know. We can say we did all these good things and it outweighs what we did over here, but it doesn't. Sin is sin.
And like you said, we're all under that sentence, you know? I mean, that's the reason why both of them have the debt.
Yeah.
Because we're all sinners.
We're all sinners. And I mean, there it is right there. That's the debt we can never pay back right there. I mean, that's just such a stark reminder every day. You know, I can't even look at the letter T anymore without thinking about the debt that he paid for us in a lot of ways. What does this teach us about our own sin?
I was about 25, 26 years old, and you know, there was my daughter, my middle daughter was about 8 years old, and her Sunday school class, I knew who her teacher was, and he sort of walked a little different. And so one day I was showing her how he walked, and which I shouldn't have done. And so she's in her Sunday school class, the next Sunday, and he was not in the classroom, and she was demonstrating to all the kids how her dad showed her how Joe walked. And he walked in, and so I found out about it, and it was quite humbling. So I went to him, and I can show you right today in Lewiston, Idaho, where I was standing when I asked him to forgive me. And it took everything I had to do that, but I did it. And he just brushed it off. Ah, no big deal, you know. And he walked off, and I stood there and I thought, well, what's his problem? Man, I took everything I had to apologize to him and everything else, and thought, and he's so cavalier about it. And God stopped me dead in my tracks. And the Holy Spirit said, hey, you did what I told you to do. Now it's up to him what he does with it. You did your part. And so I was going to get offended, but then I didn't.
You know, you just bring up a good point. Do we see sin more clearly in the moment, or do we see sin more clearly in our past?
In our past.
In our past. You know, it's kind of funny looking at Zeke right now. I think you've heard me probably say it every FCA class. When you get to my age, you know, because it's funny when you're trying to teach a group of teenagers about things that are going on in their life, that it's not until you're older you start realizing and looking at things a whole lot different. That same Bible verse that you read 30 times in your lifetime will hit you different when you read it the 31st time. And that's the way we look at sin a lot of times too. You know, there's things even in my life that I'll go ahead and start looking at the way I was last month, and I'll be like, I could do better at that. I can do better at that. And that's always going to be the toughest thing, is that if we do take that time to self-reflect on that sin. You know, this parable is not teaching us not to sin anymore. The issue is truly about awareness. The sinful woman understood her guilt, her need, and her Jesus' mercy. Simon did not. So I ask you, who was closer to God in that moment? The woman. Can pride be a dangerous and obvious sin? I don't think so. I think sometimes when we're so prideful, we don't even know that we're doing it. You know, I've been around a lot of people, and they think that they're doing the righteous thing or talking about the right thing, but at the end of the day, it's still pride. And they don't see it. And even when you confront them on it, they still don't even know that they're that prideful, you know. And we can justify it in other ways, you know. We can always say, well, I'm not prideful about myself, but you're prideful about your high school football star of a student, or you're prideful about someone that just got straight A's, or you're prideful because your wife makes really good enchiladas, you know, whatever it may be. You're still prideful. You know, Kevin and I have had this discussion. I can be proud of Gideon for showing up at the fire last night. But I can't take pride to say that, you know, it's because of me, Gideon's on the fire team. And he was putting out a lot of fire last night, you know. Can't do that. We're all very prideful in some way or another, and we've got to see that. Why is self-righteous hard to recognize in ourselves? I think we just kind of talked about that, but we do it a lot. I mean, well, I'm doing better because I'm here on church on Sunday. Well, I'm doing better because, well, I'm here in Bible study and I'm listening to this class, and I'm doing better than the people that just come to church.
Yeah, that's the thing, is we use unequal measurements, right? For other people, I'm gonna judge them really harshly.
Yeah.
And they have to hold a certain line, but I'm gonna be really easy on myself.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I guess that's part of our fallen nature.
Oh, it's horrible at times, you know? And I have a hard time listening to anybody that's righteous. I truly do. And I know that's just me, and that's something I've got to work on, to listen and to understand. But as soon as I start hearing people about how self-righteous they are, it's like, boy, I'm turned off. You know, and it's difficult for me. You know, if we look at it, Simon was the religious one. He was respectable. He was judgmental. And he felt little need for mercy. Where the woman was broken, humble, repentant, and overflowing with gratitude. Therefore, I say to you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same love is little. I want to ask you, why do some people lose their amazement at God's grace?
Why do some people what?
Lose their amazement in God's grace. Maybe it was because it's so freely given. Maybe because we think, I did it once, he forgave me, I can do it again.
Or we start to make little of what I've done, you know. After a while, I can talk myself into thinking, I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, his grace doesn't seem so amazing anymore.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't need it.
We lose the fear of him. We lose the awe of him. We've all lost the amazement in his grace one time or another in our lives. I mean, just as much as we've sinned.
We tend to fear man more than God at times.
Yeah.
And the Bible says that the fear of man brings a snare.
Yeah. That's,
I know looking at my life, that I had to constantly ask God, I want my fear for you to be much greater than man. And if we're not careful, it's as long as I can do anything, and you know, my spiritual brothers or sisters don't see it, don't know it, then I'm okay. No way. Man, how foolish is that?
yeah.
Because God can see everything I'm doing and thinking and saying.
Oh, definitely. You know, and we tend to do that. We think because nobody's seen it, you know, that nobody cares. I mean, one of the overwhelming things, think about men's addiction to porn. They do it in their own home and nobody knows, and it's okay. But they lose that fear that God is watching, you know. And there's so many other things, but I mean, that's one of the biggest threats to Christian men right now, you know.
I'm pretty sure that I tell Blake when he leaves, remember God is watching.
I think you told him that last night before he went to the graduation party.
Yes.
Oh, and I also had a friend tell me this week, don't forget he knows what you're thinking too.
Oh, yeah. And that's true, you know.
Just because it didn't come out doesn't mean it's not there.
And I got to be honest with you. I mean, there's many a nights that when I'm asking for forgiveness, I'm not only saved from my actions, but my thoughts. You know, there's so many thoughts in my head, you know, the anxieties or fears or different things that run through my head that I know are just as sinful as some of the actions, you know. Can a church accidentally become like Simon? I was explaining our church to some people, not in real estate, because I don't do that, you know, because that's against the law. But I was saying, you know, our church is really a refugee camp for so many religions. I mean, we think about it, people from Vail to Council, I went the wrong way, but come to our church, that we're affiliated with other churches, that they just didn't feel like they fit anymore, or hurt them, or the hypocrisy that someone said earlier. I mean, we see that all the time in churches, you know. And I hope our church never comes like that. I truly do. And I say to all of you, we should hold each other accountable to make sure that our church never becomes like that. You guys are doing good. You've answered some of these questions already. Okay. Point 1. Never forgive or forget what God forgave healthy Christians to stay grateful for grace. Ephesians 2:8-9. For by the grace you have been saved through faith. Number 2, stop ranking your sins to exalt yourself. Comparison leads to pride. 3, forgiven people should become loving people. Grace should change how we treat others. What happens when gratitude disappears from our faith?
That's you don't have faith.
Don't have faith?
You're more quick to judge others.
Yes. So every morning I have this gratitude journal. It sits right next to the kitchen table, and I help Wes get ready, and then I just write everything I'm thankful for the day before, and it's got a Bible verse, and I read it with Wes. And I know on the mornings that I get too busy to write in that gratitude journal, my day goes to heck. I feel like a firefighter, all day long. I'm putting out problems. I'm taking care of things. There's issues going on. And it's the weirdest thing. But I know if I don't do that gratitude journal every day, things go wrong in my life. And that gratitude journal helps me to center on God, to show him everything that I am thankful for the day before. I know I do it in my prayers, but it's another thing when you've got to list them out. And I tell you what, there is some mornings that I'm like, whew, what do I have to be thankful for? And I've got to look around. Well, I ate breakfast today. I've got a roof over my head. I've got a son right next to me. I've got a wife that loves me. More so than, oh, this happened yesterday, and I did this, and I did that, But it's hard. It's hard to be grateful every day. Especially when struggles are real and you're going through things in life, But it's important. Because when we are grateful and we tell God how grateful we are, that strengthens our faith just as much as anything else. So I leave this question to you guys today. Are you quicker to judge somebody, or are you quicker to love somebody? I think you nailed it on the head this morning. Sometimes with family, we're quicker to judge them than we are to love them. And we always think that, kind of asking this question, this would be a new person on the street or someone we see in the grocery store. But what about the people in our lives?
I think you judge those that you love more.
Don't you? I think we all do. Oh, they did it again. He left his shoes out. My son doesn't love me, doesn't respect me. We're quicker to judge, As I left all my shoes and fire clothes on the front porch last night too, and I went, ooh, I'm not going to say anything about shoes on the front porch this morning. But I think we got to reevaluate that in our lives every day. Am I quicker to love, or am I quicker to judge? There truly is two people in this story. The broken sinner who knows she needs Jesus, and the religious man who thinks he is mostly fine. And I think there's a big difference. There's a lot of people that just want to be religious. And there's a lot of people out there too that know they need Jesus. Jesus makes it clear which heart he is pleased with more. And God will respond with humility towards you too. So some final questions to answer to yourself. Which character do you relate the most with? Why is humanity essential in Christianity? How should forgiven people treat struggling sinners? What's the difference between conviction and condemnation? And how can we keep our hearts soft towards God? Does anybody else have anything final? All right, well, I kept it short today, guys. All right, thank you.